February 2014, Namjiang County, Sichuan Province. The meeting room was small enough that the air felt shared. Fluorescent lights hummed faintly overhead. A kettle clicked off in the corner. On the wall, a projection screen glowed with pause footage from a traffic checkpoint camera. The image was grainy, washed in winter sodium light. A car sat frozen mid-frame. 3 months. That was how long Wu Xiao had been missing. At first, it did not feel like a crime. It felt like a delay. A woman who worked long hours, a mother who sometimes traveled home without notice, a phone that had gone quiet. But phones do not stay silent forever, and people do not simply vanish from routine. The officer controlling the playback leaned forward and pressed pause again. The car had passed this checkpoint on the evening of December 8, 2013. Just seconds of footage. Nothing dramatic, no swerving, no speeding, just another vehicle moving through a small county town at night. Except this car had appeared more than once. December 7th, December 8th, in and out of Namjiang. The timestamps aligned too neatly with something else in the file. The officer zoomed in. Pixel distortion expanded across the screen. The headlights flared, the driver's silhouette blurred into shadow. "Back seat," someone said quietly. They zoomed again. There it was, a patch of red, not bright, not obvious, but sharp enough against the dark interior to resist being ignored. The salon owner had described it weeks earlier during questioning. A red handbag, structured, she carried it every day. The image stayed frozen. The room was silent, because a handbag does not enter a vehicle by accident. And if the bag was there on the night of December 8th, then at some point, so was she. Wu Xiao had left the salon around 7 p.m. that evening. She told her employer she was going back to her hometown for a few days. The call lasted less than a minute. Traffic noise filled the background. Wind pressed against the microphone. Normal, nothing alarming. Except she never arrived. Her husband and Mianyang waited for the usual call that night. Then the next day. Then the next. By December 14th, the missing persons report was filed. At first, investigators considered the possibilities they always consider: voluntary departure, personal conflict, financial stress, emotional withdrawal. But Wu Xiao was not impulsive. She worked in Namjiang to help repay a mortgage. She lived inside the salon to save money. She returned home once a month to see her 5-year-old son. Routine had structure. Structure leaves traces. And then there was the bank record. At 9:06 p.m. on December 8th, 2 hours after she left work, 900 RMB was withdrawn from her account at an ATM in Namjiang. Her entire balance. The ATM camera captured a man wearing a full-face yellow helmet and gloves. He moved efficiently, calmly. 2 minutes, then gone. No visible face, no hesitation, just enough preparation to suggest planning. Back in the meeting room, the footage shifted to that clip. The helmet filled the frame. Opaque visor, reflective under harsh light. Whoever stood at that machine knew exactly where the camera was. But what drew the room's attention back to the traffic checkpoint footage was not the helmet. It was the timing. Earlier that same afternoon, at 3:30 p.m., a mobile SIM card had been activated, a number Wu Xiao had never contacted before. Between 5 and 7 p.m., that number called her 6 times. After December 8th, it never existed again. 2 hours of digital life, 6 calls, then silence. The officer tapped the desk lightly. The SIM activation window, the repeated vehicle entries, the ATM withdrawal, the red handbag. Individually, they were fragments. Together, they began to feel like choreography. Outside the station, winter in Sichuan had settled heavily over the county roads. Mountain routes turned dark early. Bridges caught wind that cut through layered clothing. One witness had reported seeing Wu Xiao around 7:30 p.m. that night. She was standing near the railing of a bridge, speaking on her phone. Not distressed, not hurried, just talking, as if arranging something. The investigators rewound the checkpoint video again. The car passed through at 7 p.m., returned later, left again near 11 p.m. Why so many entries? Why that pattern? And why did the timestamps align so closely with the calls from a number that had never existed before that day? Someone in the room finally said it. She got into that car. No one argued, but no one yet knew why. Was it trust? Was it familiarity? Was it deception? The frame on the screen remained paused on the red handbag. A simple object, soft leather, carried daily, now transformed into the first silent confirmation that Wu Xiao had not disappeared into abstraction. She had been somewhere specific, inside something, with someone, and somewhere beyond the reach of that camera's fading pixels. The story had already crossed a line investigators were only beginning to see. The officer shut off the projector. Darkness reclaimed the wall. For 3 months, Wu Xiao had been a missing person. That night in February, in that small room in Namjiang, she became something else, a pattern. And patterns do not form without intent. Cut to black. Before she became a case file, Wu Xiao was predictable. And in investigations, predictable lives are the hardest to erase. She was 34 years old in December of 2013. Married, a mother, not reckless, not impulsive. The kind of person who measured expenses in small increments and believed that stability could be built one sacrifice at a time. In 2012, she left her hometown of Mianyang and traveled to Namjiang County for work. The decision wasn't dramatic, it was practical. A mortgage had been taken out. A home purchased in the city. It was meant to represent progress, something permanent for her son. But progress requires income. So she moved into the back room of a small hair salon in Namjiang. She slept there most nights, cooked simple meals, sent money home, returned to Mianyang once a month. Every evening she called her husband and her 5-year-old son. Every evening. Routine is a form of promise. The salon owner described her as disciplined, quiet, focused on work. She did not socialize much outside the shop. She did not frequent bars. She did not disappear without explanation, which is why December 8th felt wrong only in hindsight. On December 7th, a man came into the salon. He was older than her, nearly 50, thin, dressed in dark clothing, polite. He asked for a haircut, then conversation. There was nothing outwardly alarming about him. No raised voice, no pressure, no visible threat. According to co-workers, he waited outside the salon that evening and walked with her briefly before she returned to sleep at the shop. It did not look forced. It did not look urgent. If anyone had watched from across the street, they would have seen something ordinary. A man speaking with a woman after work. Trust rarely announces itself as dangerous. The next day, December 8th, something shifted, but only slightly. Her phone rang more than usual that afternoon. She did not answer inside the salon. Instead, she stepped outside to speak. A small behavioral change. Easy to miss. Co-workers later recalled that she seemed distracted, not frightened, just preoccupied, as if waiting for something. At 3:30 p.m., a new mobile number was activated somewhere in Namjiang. At 5:01 p.m., it began calling her 6 times. Between 5 and 7 p.m., the calls were short. No one inside the salon heard what was said, but witnesses remembered she stood near the road while speaking, away from others. Why step outside? Privacy, excitement, secrecy, or simply better reception? It is dangerous to assign meaning too early. At 7:00 p.m., she told the salon owner she would return to her hometown for a few days. The statement was calm, casual. She carried her usual red handbag, makeup, personal items, nothing unusual for a short trip. She did not pack in panic. She did not leave in haste. She walked out into winter air like someone heading toward a plan. One witness later placed her on a bridge around 7:30 p.m., speaking on the phone again. Traffic noise drowned out details. She did not appear distressed. If there had been fear, it was not visible from a passing distance. This detail would trouble investigators later, because abductions leave traces, raised voices, struggle, witnesses who remember tension. But that night, Wu Xiao did not appear to resist anything, which has suggested something else. She may have believed she was safe. Back in Mianyang, her husband waited for the usual evening call. It never came. The first night, he assumed she was busy. The second night, perhaps she was traveling. By the third, unease began to form. Wu Xiao was not careless with communication. Her absence was louder than any argument could have been. When investigators reconstructed her final known hours, they noticed something subtle. She had spoken the previous evening, December 7th, about her new apartment, about plans to buy a car someday. It was ordinary conversation, aspirational, not boastful, but aspiration can be misinterpreted. In small towns, words travel differently. When someone mentions property or savings, listeners may fill in the blanks. Did someone believe she had access to more money than she did? Her bank balance on December 8th was 900 RMB, not the savings of someone wealthy. But perception often outweighs fact. Investigators later asked themselves, was December 7th a test? Was the salon visit reconnaissance? Was the following day already decided? Or did the situation escalate unexpectedly? At this point in the timeline, there were no bodies, no confessions, only fragments. 6 phone calls from a number that had never existed before that afternoon. A woman stepping outside to answer them. A red handbag, a bridge, a car passing repeatedly through a checkpoint, and a life defined by routine, broken by one deviation. If Wu Xiao had ignored the calls, perhaps the evening would have unfolded normally. If she had stayed inside, if she had insisted on meeting in daylight, if she had not believed that familiarity could be built in 24 hours. But hindsight is a luxury investigators cannot rely on. They deal in sequences, and the sequence was tightening. At 9:06 p.m., her bank account was emptied. 2 hours after she left work, someone knew her PIN, which meant at some point between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., trust or force had already intervened. The question was no longer whether she left voluntarily. The question was when that voluntary decision ended, and whether she realized it in time. In missing person cases, digital traces often outlive human ones. Wu Xiao's phone records were not dramatic. There were no frantic calls, no emergency attempts, no sudden spike in communication with family. What stood out was absence, and then precision. At exactly 15:30 on December 8, 2013, a mobile SIM card was activated in Namjiang County. It had never been used before. It had no prior call history. Arrests did not happen dramatically. There were no high-speed pursuits broadcast on television. By the time warrants were issued, the 3 men were already in different provinces. Distance, however, does not dissolve timelines. Yu Hu was detained first, in connection with a separate robbery investigation. Liu Dong and Chen Jiang were later located in coastal regions, far from Namjiang. At first, the responses were predictable. Denial, minimization, selective memory. Yu Hu claimed he only knew Wu Xiao casually. Liu Dong insisted they had simply traveled through Namjiang. Chen Jiang described the December trip as unremarkable. But digital alignment is difficult to dispute. Vehicle checkpoints, hotel registration, ATM timestamp, disposable SIM activation, and when interrogations are conducted separately, inconsistencies surface. The first fracture appeared when investigators presented the synchronized timeline, hour by hour, movement by movement. December 7th. Yu Hu had entered the salon intentionally, not for a haircut, for contact. He had observed Wu Xiao's routine, learned that she lived inside the salon, learned she worked late, learned she was alone. That evening, after gaining her phone number, he reported back to Liu Dong and Chen Jiang. The following day was not spontaneous. It was operational. At 13:30 on December 8th, the vehicle entered Namjiang. The 3 men drove toward a mountainous area approximately 9 kilometers from town. There, according to later testimony, they prepared something. The afternoon exit at 16:30 was not retreat. It was repositioning. At 15:30, the disposable SIM was activated. Yu Hu purchased it specifically to avoid linking the calls to his real identity. Between 17:08 and 19:08, he called Wu Xiao 6 times, encouraging her to meet, suggesting a short trip. Nothing alarming in tone. He understood that pressure would create resistance. Calm would create compliance. At approximately 19:00, they re-entered Namjiang. Wu Xiao left the salon around that time. She was seen near the bridge at 19:30, speaking on the phone. Then she entered the vehicle. Voluntarily, that detail would echo later in court, because it meant trust had been successfully engineered. Inside the vehicle, the atmosphere shifted. At some point after leaving town center, coercion began. Her bank card was taken. Her PIN was demanded. Investigators determined this must have occurred before 2106. The ATM withdrawal was not an impulsive theft. It was scheduled into the sequence. Helmet prepared, gloves worn, route selected, 900 RMB, her entire balance. According to confessions, this was the moment the plan fractured. The men had believed she possessed significant savings. They had interpreted casual conversation about property and future purchases as evidence of accessible funds. When the ATM revealed only 900 RMB, anger replaced expectation. But here lies the critical psychological turn. The grave had already been prepared earlier that afternoon, which means the possibility of murder existed before the ATM transaction. Whether they intended to release her after robbery or eliminate her regardless became secondary to one fact. Preparation had been made for permanent concealment. The mountainous site had been chosen in advance. Tools had been brought. Coordination had been discussed. The ATM withdrawal was a financial disappointment, but the burial plan did not originate from disappointment. It originated from planning. Investigators reconstructed the route after 2106. The vehicle left town. No further checkpoint entries until the 2301 exit. In the window between those times, Wu Xiao's fate was sealed. Her body was not recovered until May 2014. Guided by Liu Dong's eventual cooperation, authorities located the burial site in the remote hillside area, previously mapped during vehicle analysis. Forensic examination confirmed blunt force trauma. Restraint marks were present. There was no evidence of extended captivity. The sequence had been contained within hours. 3 men, 1 vehicle, 1 prepared site, and a life calculated into logistics. During interrogation, another layer surfaced. This was not an isolated idea conceived over one weekend. Yu Hu had discussed targeting women before. The group had considered multiple potential victims, specifically women who lived or worked alone. Approach, build rapport, create privacy, control environment. The disposable SIM was not innovation, it was method. The rotation of drivers was not coincidence. It was an attempt to diffuse identifiable patterns. The afternoon mountain trip was not scenic travel, it was rehearsal and preparation. This was structured predation, and Wu Xiao was selected not because of who she was, but because she was accessible, because she answered, because she believed the interaction was benign. In court proceedings later that year, the timeline was laid out with clinical precision. December 7th, contact established. December 8th afternoon, site prepared. December 8th evening, victim lured. 2106, funds withdrawn, nightfall, concealment executed. When confronted with the sequence, the defendants no longer denied involvement. Instead, they attempted to argue escalation, that the violence occurred only after discovering the small bank balance. But investigators emphasized the pre-dug site. Preparation weakens the argument of sudden rage. Intent does not require emotional outburst. It requires anticipation. By October 2014, the court issued its ruling. Death sentences for all 3 primary participants. The legal system closed the file, but the psychological file remained open. Because the most disturbing aspect of this case was not brutality, it was structure, not chaos, not loss of control, but the illusion of normal interaction layered over a premeditated framework. The SIM card had existed for 2 hours. The trust building took 1 day. The preparation took an afternoon, and within a 90-minute window between 1930 and 2106, routine collapsed into orchestration. As the confessions were finalized, one final question remained in the investigation room. If the ATM had displayed a larger balance, would the ending have changed? Or was the decision already made when the soil was disturbed earlier that day? In May 2014, 5 months after Wu Xiao disappeared, investigators returned to the mountains. The air was warmer than it had been in December. Spring had softened the soil. Under the guidance of one of the suspects, search teams located a disturbed patch of earth roughly 9 kilometers from Namjiang Center, a place few people had reason to visit. For months, her family had existed in uncertainty. Hope, even fragile hope, is difficult to extinguish without proof. Recovery ended that ambiguity. Forensic examination confirmed what the timeline had already implied. The injuries were consistent with assault by blunt force. Restraint marks confirmed control. There was no evidence of prolonged captivity. The The sequence had been swift, structured, finite. By October 2014, the court in Sichuan delivered its judgment. Yu Hu, Liu Dong, Namjiang, all sentenced to death. The ruling emphasized premeditation, coordinated action, and extreme social harm. Legally, the case was complete, but closure is rarely procedural. In Mianyang, Wu Xiao's son was 5 years old when she disappeared. At that age, memory is selective. He would not remember the details of SIM cards or checkpoint footage. He would remember routine, nightly calls, promises of returning home soon. In Namjiang, the salon continued operating. Haircuts resumed. Customers came and left. But the staff would later say that December evenings felt different. The bridge where she had been seen taking her final call remained in place. Traffic still passed. Wind still moved across the railing. Nothing in the environment carried visible evidence of what had unfolded. That is often the unsettling part. Places remained neutral. People assigned meaning afterward. The case prompted regional discussion about informal SIM registration practices, about monitoring recently released offenders, about personal safety in rapidly modernizing rural counties. But policy adjustments do not erase patterns of human behavior, because beneath the procedural failures was something more fundamental. 3 men recently released from prison. Limited economic prospects, shared history, opportunity, and a belief that perception of wealth equaled actual wealth. Wu Xiao's casual comments about her mortgage and future car became in their minds indicators of accessible money. A cognitive distortion, greed amplified by assumption. At the same time, Wu Xiao's trust was not irrational. She met a man in a public setting. He spoke politely. He behaved normally. There were no immediate warning signs visible to coworkers. Trust in small communities is often extended by default, and predators understand that. The disposable SIM is perhaps the most symbolic element of this case. Activated at 15:30, used between 17 and 19 Mars, gone by nightfall. 2 hours of digital existence, long enough to alter a life permanently. Technology did not create the crime, but it reduced friction. It created a temporary identity. It allowed approach without trace, and in a world increasingly mediated by numbers and signals, anonymity can be manufactured with alarming ease. There is also the question that lingers, quietly but persistently. Was murder always the intended outcome? The defense suggested escalation, anger after discovering only 900 RMB, disappointment turning violent. But investigators returned to the same detail. The site had been prepared before the ATM withdrawal. Preparation implies foresight. Foresight implies at least acceptance of lethal possibility. Perhaps the ATM result influenced timing, but it did not invent the plan. The most sobering realization is not the brutality of the act, it is the efficiency. Contact established in one visit, trust secured within 24 hours, preparation completed in one afternoon, execution contained within 90 minutes. From routine to irreversibility in less time than an evening commute. And all of it dependent on a decision as small as answering a phone call. When reviewing the file months later, one investigator reportedly summarized it this way: it wasn't chaos, it was sequence. And sequences are harder to emotionally process than explosions of rage, because they suggest clarity of thought, deliberate steps, measured movement. Wu Xiao left work believing she was stepping into something ordinary: dinner, conversation, a brief trip. Instead, she stepped into structure. The legal system delivered its maximum sentence. The file was archived. But in Namjiang, if you stand on that bridge at dusk, traffic still masks conversation, wind still presses against clothing, phones still ring. The difference is invisible, which leaves us with the final question. Do you believe this was premeditated from the beginning, or a plan that hardened only after expectation met reality? Silence often holds the answer. No stored context. Between 17 and 19 in mud, it called Wu Xiao 6 times. Short calls, consistent intervals. Then after that evening, it disappeared. No further activity, no reactivation, no movement data. A phone number that existed for roughly 2 hours, long enough to create contact, long enough to arrange something, and then erased itself from practical reach. Investigators requested registration data from the telecom provider. The name attached to the CM belonged to a college student, but the student had a verified alibi, classroom attendance records, witnesses. Eventually, a smaller truth surfaced. A local shop had reused old identification information to register new SIM cards for customers who did not bring documents. It was a shortcut, a common violation, faster sales. In isolation, it was a minor regulatory breach. In context, it became a wall. The SIM had been purchased in person. No surveillance cameras inside the shop. No proper ID. The person who activated it had planned for invisibility. That planning suggested something else. This was not an argument that spiraled. It was a setup. Meanwhile, the ATM footage was reviewed again. 2106. A man wearing a yellow full-face helmet approached the machine. Gloves covered his hands. His posture was steady. He inserted Wu Xiao's bank card, entered the PIN correctly on the first attempt, withdrew 900 RMB, her entire balance. 2 minutes. No hesitation, no visible urgency. He left the frame walking, not running. Investigators paused on the frame where the keypad was visible. The helmet concealed his face completely. But behavior can reveal as much as identity. This was not someone guessing a PIN. This was someone who had already obtained it, which meant between 19 miles and 2106, Wu Xiao was no longer acting freely. The timeline narrowed. At approximately 19 Ra, a vehicle with Sichuan plates entered Namjiang through a checkpoint camera. The same vehicle had entered earlier that afternoon, and the day before. Multiple passes, unusual frequency, not enough to alarm a patrol officer in real time, enough to matter later. Officers began reviewing footage from multiple checkpoints across the county. The process was slow. Over 10,000 vehicles passed through the relevant windows between late afternoon and midnight. Each one required examination. License plates logged, timestamps aligned, direction tracked. Patterns do not shout, they repeat. The Sichuan plated car repeated. December 7th, 1330. Entry, 1630. Exit evening. Another pass. December 8th, 1330. Entry, 1630. Exit 19. Entry, 23 Shari. Exit, 4 passes within critical windows. Too many to ignore. When investigators synchronized the checkpoint timestamps with the SIM activation window, something tightened. 1530. SIM activated. 17 was 19 Shun. 6 calls. 19 Mars. Vehicle re-enters county. 2106. ATM withdrawal. 23 Mar. Vehicle exits. The sequence felt deliberate, like steps in a routine. And then there was the bridge. A witness had reported seeing Wu Xiao at approximately 1930, speaking on her phone near the railing. That bridge sat between the salon and the highway route toward the mountainous outskirts, about 8 kilometers from town center. Walking that distance in winter within 30 minutes would be unlikely. She must have had transportation, which suggested the vehicle had already made contact by that time. Officers replayed the checkpoint footage again, this time focusing on interior silhouettes. In one pass, the driver's build appeared consistent with the registered owner of the vehicle, Liu Dong, a man with a prior criminal record. In another pass, seating positions appeared different. The driver shifted. The passenger seat occupied by someone else. 3 individuals inside, rotating positions. Why rotate drivers unless you are trying to obscure something? Investigators obtained Liu Dong's background file. Recently released from prison, associates included Chen Jiang, another former inmate, and a third name began appearing in cross-references, Yu Hu, also recently released. The connections were not yet proof, but they formed a cluster. 3 former inmates, 1 vehicle, 1 disposable SIM, 1 woman missing. Still, at this stage, there was no body, no confession, only alignment. And alignment can be coincidence, but coincidence rarely follows such strict timing. When officers mapped the vehicle's exit route at 23 on December 8th, they noticed it headed toward a mountainous area approximately 9 kilometers from Namjiang Center. Sparse lighting, few residences, limited night traffic, a place where sound does not travel far. The theory began forming quietly in the investigation room. What if the SIM was used not to invite her somewhere public, but to control timing? What if the multiple entries and exits were rehearsals, or scouting movements? And what if the ATM withdrawal was not the objective, but merely a step? One officer summarized it carefully. She believed she was meeting someone she recognized, because nothing in the witness accounts suggested force at pickup, which meant the transition from voluntary movement to coercion likely happened inside the vehicle, between the bridge and the ATM, between 1930 and 2106. A 90-minute window, 90 minutes during which a life shifted from routine to disappearance. The ATM footage replayed one more time. The helmet's visor reflected the machine's green interface light. The figure did not look panicked. He looked procedural, and procedures imply rehearsal. As Part 3 closed in the investigative timeline, the case was no longer treated as a missing person report. It had evolved into something structured, coordinated, and likely premeditated. But one question still hovered over the room. Was the intention always murder, or was something discovered along the way that changed the plan? The answer would not come from cameras. It would come from arrests. Investigations rarely break open all at once. They narrow, slowly, like a lens adjusting focus. By late February 2014, the Sichuan-plated vehicle had moved from interesting to central. The license plate was traced to Liu Dong. Male, recently released from prison, no stable employment, history of property-related offenses, not violent on record, but records only show what was proven. Investigators pulled hotel registration data from Namjiang during December 7th and 8th. Liu Dong had checked into a small local hotel. He was not alone. The registration listed another name, Chen Jiang, also recently released, also previously incarcerated. Two former inmates traveling together to a small county town without clear employment purpose. That alone was not illegal, but it was context. Then came the interior footage review. When officers slowed down the checkpoint recordings frame by frame, something subtle emerged. In one pass, Liu Dong appeared to be driving. In another, Chen Jiang sat behind the wheel. A third silhouette occupied the remaining seat. Three men, rotating positions. People on casual road trips do not usually switch seats mid-journey multiple times within short intervals. It suggested coordination or shared responsibility. Investigators expanded their background checks. In prison records, Liu Dong and Chen Jiang had overlapping incarceration periods with another inmate, Yu Hu, also released earlier that year. Yu Hu's name began surfacing in phone contact analysis tied loosely to Liu Dong. There were no direct digital records connecting him to the disposable SIM, but absence at this stage was no longer reassuring. Then another detail surfaced. A former salon employee who had initially been unavailable during early interviews returned and provided an additional statement. She remembered seeing Wu Xiao enter a vehicle on the evening of December 8th. Three men were inside. She did not recognize them at the time, but after being shown still images extracted from checkpoint footage, she identified one face as similar to a man who had visited the salon on December 7th for a haircut. The older man, polite, soft-spoken, the one who had asked for Wu Xiao's number, the name connected to that description? Yu Hu. The structure was solidifying. December 7th, Yu Hu visits the salon, builds rapport, gains contact information. December 8th, disposable SIM activated, 6 calls placed. Vehicle movements align with call window. Wu Xiao seen entering vehicle. ATM withdrawal executed. Vehicle exits county late at night. Investigators mapped the vehicle's late-night route after its final checkpoint pass at 23 on Wan. The direction pointed toward a mountainous stretch approximately 9 kilometers outside Namjiang. Sparse development, minimal lighting, no routine patrol presence at that hour. And then came a crucial realization. The vehicle had entered and exited the county earlier on December 8th, before the evening pickup. At 13:30 it entered. At 16:30 it exited, then returned at 19 Iranam. Why leave and come back within hours, unless something needed preparation? Search teams began examining remote areas along the mapped route. They did not yet have a precise location, but the geography mattered. Open terrain, loose soil in winter. If something had been buried in advance, it would not have been obvious from the road. The theory sharpened internally, though not yet publicly stated. What if the afternoon trip had not been random travel? What if it was reconnaissance? Or worse, Preparation? Investigators also re-examined the ATM timeline. If the withdrawal occurred at 21:06, then Wu Xiao must have been under control prior to that time. The PIN had been obtained, the bank card accessed, which meant coercion occurred before the ATM stop. The ATM was not the beginning of the crime, it was the middle, and if planning extended to acquiring a SIM and coordinating multiple drivers, then the crime likely did not begin at 7 p.m. It began at least 24 hours earlier, possibly longer. The final element that tightened the frame was behavioral. 3 recently released former inmates, no stable income, traveling together, targeting a woman living alone in a salon, building contact one day, executing plan the next. This was no longer a question of disappearance. It was a question of premeditation. But there was still no body, no physical evidence linking the men directly to violence. Only movement patterns, only structure, only alignment. Warrants were prepared, arrest operations were coordinated across provinces, because by this point, the men were no longer in Namjiang. The vehicle had moved. Hotel checkout had occurred. The patterns suggested dispersal, almost as if they anticipated pursuit. One officer summarized the situation quietly. If this was opportunistic, it was highly organized opportunism, which raised a final uncertainty. Was Wu Xiao specifically targeted? Or was she selected because she was accessible? Because she was alone? Because she mentioned financial stability? Or because she simply answered the phone? The arrest would determine whether the afternoon trip to the mountains had been coincidence, or something darker. The screen in the meeting room no longer displayed the red handbag. Now it showed 3 names on a whiteboard: Liu Dong, Chen Jiang, Yu Hu. The case had shifted from missing woman to structured operation. The only remaining question was how far the structure extended.